I wish to, as we commence this workshop and launch of the IXP, I wish to bring you greetings on behalf of my Managing Director and staff of ECTEL, which is the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Regulatory Authority. Now, several of us are partnering here today in terms of the official launch and the hosting of this workshop. I just want to provide for you a background. The Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority is responsible to work with the participating countries on harmonized policy and regulatory frameworks and removing bottlenecks. ECTEL's mandate and support is to improve and harmonize regional regulatory frameworks. Now, in terms of those regulatory frameworks, ECTEL works in collaboration with the NTRCs in 5 member states: Grenada, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And they're currently working on improving the overall regulatory framework. As we know, the regulatory framework now is some 15 years old, and they're in the process of updating the Telecommunications Act. So they would have put out the Electronic Communications Bill for consultation, and it is now under review. It is supposed to go to the OECS Legal Affairs Council soon, so that that could then be addressed and brought to the various parliaments within the countries to modernize the electronic communications sector. Now, all of this that we are doing today is part of the CARCIP project. And ECTEL, under the project, was supposed to provide implementation support to the Caribbean Telecommunications Union and the participating countries, which are Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Lucia. And essentially, that was to provide technical assistance to improve the legal enabling environment to maximize the benefits of the infrastructure, one of which is the National Internet Exchange, also subsea fiber and the national broadband network. The second part of it was to strengthen the competitiveness of the telecommunications market in the medium term and knowledge transfer and capacity building to support effective sector regulation and development. Essentially, the areas of focus had to do with infrastructure sharing, cost-based access rules, retail pricing, including roaming, number portability, interconnection, competition rules, and consumer protection. Information gathering, sanctions, monitoring and enforcement, and development and implementation of open access and wholesale price regulations. I wish to state here that sometime in June last year, the joint venture consultancy firm of Great Village International Consultants, Bird and JITCOM, they were engaged to do a regulatory assessment of the framework within the CARCIP participating countries, in general, really the ECTEL member states. And I wish to report at this point in time, they have prepared draft regulations which address matters related to consumer protection, submarine cable, wholesale access, and retail pricing. Now you might ask, what are all these for? Essentially, the overarching policy is for cheap and efficient access to broadband. So you also have to look not only at putting in the infrastructure, but also having the regulatory framework to allow for that. The second aspect of this work that ECTEL is responsible for is the technical support to undertake in collaboration with the NTRC studies related to social and economic factors, which are inhibiting the increase in broadband uptake. And one such study that was done had to do with the impact of broadband on economic growth in the ECTEL member states. And basically, it was to develop an economic model to measure the impact, all things equal. The third aspect has to do with support for capacity building initiatives of ECTEL and the NTRC to implement and enforce the revised legal and regulatory framework to broader project objectives. And this workshop here today is one such activity in terms of strengthening the capacity of the different stakeholders involved in the regulatory framework. One component I wish to indicate here is that we would have produced radio and television public service announcements to also build the capacity of the general public. So while we build capacity of the core stakeholders in terms of the regulators, the operators, we also have to look at building the capacity of consumers as well. And in this regard, we would have produced several PSAs, and these would be launched later this week. These include promoting digital demand, know your service choice, know your service contract, lodging service complaints, broadband quality of service in terms of broadband speeds, what is spam and how to handle it, because more and more people are becoming users of the internet, and you have all these things such as spam and phishing and so on. So we have what is phishing and how to handle it as well. In terms of today's workshop, we have with us international consultant Mike Jensen, and we are going to focus on the role of the IXP in building the local and regional internet ecosystem in the country, how to ensure sustainable operations of the IXP, and what measures need to be taken to maximize impact, technical considerations to support the next phase of implementation of the IXP. So those are the objectives in terms of the IXP. At this time,